Welcome to the show, everyone. Today is only be me, but we have a special guest, Joshua Shea. Joshua is he's an author. He's an expert in how do I say this? I want to make sure I give him the proper introduction. He was a pornography addict for 24 years, alcoholic for 22 years, but he's been sober for the past 10 years. No relapses, which is a major accomplishment, right? Come from a family alcoholic, so I really want to give you props on that one. But he
Thank you.
has written multiple books, but he's a coach that specializes in porn addiction, betrayal trauma, and trust issues. He has helped more than 500 individuals and couples recover and heal. And today we're going to hear about his story, what he does, how he helps people, and hopefully, if you're struggling with any of these things, how we can help you. So, welcome to the show, sir. Of
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
course. Thank you for coming in. So, first, we want to say, what exactly is betrayal trauma? Because we all have probably been betrayed some way, or maybe feel trauma, but like, kind of what is it? How does it differ from other kinds of, if I can speak today, other kinds of trauma?
Uh, it is trauma essentially of trust. And there are different kinds of trauma that come from different events. If you're abused, if you're in some kind of natural disaster, for instance, you know, if you, things like physical, blunt force trauma. There are many types of trauma. Betrayal trauma is really a trauma of trust. And that is how a lot of us do get traumatized early on, how we learn that people say one thing and do another. And when it is somebody who you implicitly trust 100%, whether it's your parents, your grandparents, a teacher, or the people who I deal with later in life, usually as the partner of a porn addict, it is somebody who has been lied to, somebody who generally has pre-existing trauma, because this will cause that to sort of pop up and fester from the past. And like I said, in my line of work, 90% of the time, it's a female dealing with it. They have a male partner who is addicted or has a major issue with pornography, that guy has not divulged it during their relationship or has flat out lied about it. And the three stages of betrayal trauma are: number one, you see the woman feel like she's caused the porn problem. She's the issue.
Mhm.
Maybe she's not hot enough anymore. Maybe she's not good enough in bed. Maybe she doesn't turn him on in whatever way, so he had to go to pornography. That's pretty easy to explain that they are not the cause of the pornography addiction. The second part, usually this is the part where they come to me, is that they don't know how to trust. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know if they can. They don't know if they want to. They don't know if they have to push him for help or if they have to just kind of let him find his own way. It's like they're in a dark forest and they don't know what to do next because they never expected to be at this place, so they're not prepared for it. After I help them with that, the big question then, and especially for the longer relationships, is what do I do next? It's one thing if you're dating somebody for a month and you find out they're an addict and you don't like that and you want to walk away. That's no problem. What if you've been married 15 years? What
Mm.
if you've got 2 kids and 3 pets and a mortgage and insurance payments and car payments, and you together can provide yourself and your kids with a good lifestyle, but with your separate salaries, it's not going to be as good? What do you do in that case?
Right.
So that's generally what I help do, is navigate the betrayed partner through the process and hopefully get them to a place where they can make a decision whether to trust. They can have a plan and a strategy for moving forward. That's my goal with my clients who are dealing with betrayal trauma.
Wow. That's something that like I don't think I ever thought about that. You know what I mean? You never really think about, because I'm so young, I'm not in like those type of relationships yet. But for someone that maybe wants to help, maybe it's a parent or a friend or a family member, and they could think that someone might be going through that kind of thing. What are the initial signs that someone's going through betrayal trauma? Like maybe it's because like, it's not something that you can see
It's
like a physical thing. You know what I mean?
right. It's a lot of hesitancy to talk about the situation. It's if you see somebody's having an emotional reaction when you bring up very benign kind of things, um, it's them isolating and pulling away from people that they love socially, family wise. It's seeing them in a depressive state, uh, and ultimately, if they are not being themselves, just a simple, how are you doing? How is everything going? How is your relationship? A lot of people are looking to be asked these questions. I think a lot of people come to me as a coach these days, um, simply because they want to talk to somebody a little bit. They want somebody to say, hi, how are you? They want somebody to be able to cry to who isn't in their inner circle.
Mm,
So what you can also do if you see somebody who's like this, but you don't think they're going to speak to you, you can urge them to get help. This is what I tell my pornography addicts or the friends and family of pornography addicts. Really, the person in question, and this is true for any situation, has to be the one who wants to get help. They have to be the one who wants to improve and wants to change things. You can push them in that direction a little bit. You
mm,
can let them know that you won't judge them, that you won't shame them, that, you are there for them 100%. And when they want to get help, you will help them find it. If they don't want to talk to you, that you are there for them 100%. But
mm.
the thing I've learned coming up here on 6 years of coaching is that somebody who doesn't want to be helped is not going to be helped.
It's a very good point. And I think it's something that like it's very frustrating to be in that position, right? I think we've all probably been there with friends or family, and it's a good thing that you said that to for us to remember it. You know what I mean? It's like because also I think that if you're the person trying to help, and because you care about that person so much, but then they're not going, it feels kind of like bad on you, like you're not doing enough. Like what can I do, whatever. So happy you said it to maybe like relieve pressure from some people that could be dealing with that.
Well, and what's funny is that if you look at culture over the last 15 years,
Mm,
um, I think that the show Intervention was a double edged sword. Intervention showed real life symptoms, real life fallout of various types of addiction, but the person in question went to rehab 95% of the time in the show. Now, they failed half the time, but they went 95% of the time, and
mm,
people just don't go get help that much of the time. It would be wonderful to believe that, but that doesn't happen. And I can tell you, as someone who was at rehab twice, it would be nice if the success rate was 50%. It's actually much lower. Again,
oh,
having been there myself and having it been a beautifully transformative experience for me, the people who had it work were the people who wanted to have it work. And a lot of people were there because a judge told them they had to be there. A lot of people were there because their parents would say, or their family, we're going to cut you off if you don't go get help. So a lot of them were there just going through the motions so they could get out and start their life of addiction, whether that was food or porn or drugs or alcohol. Start that right back up. You need to want to succeed.
mhm.
And if you don't, nobody in the world is going to give you that motivation.
It's a very good point. It makes a lot of sense. So one thing that we talked about last week actually is trust and in relationships, and second chances was a major topic for us last week. And we're trying to talk about how to rebuild after it, but we couldn't really give advice because you don't want to mess anything up. Do you have advice for people that maybe want to try again, whether it's, the woman struggling with the husband or boyfriend with porn addiction or whatever it might be, or someone broke trust by doing whatever it might,
Yeah.
happen?
Trust has to be rebuilt over time.
Mm,
And what I say to the person who broke the trust is that moving forward, you better damn well be where you say you're going to be. You
mm,
better damn well be there when you say you're going to be there. You better get up off the couch and help out when it's requested.
mm,
Maybe you don't even wait to have the help requested. Maybe you just get up because, through history, the trash gets full. You know
right.
what day the trash man comes to get the garbage. Uh,
Hmm.
be better. That's ultimately my advice is be better and hope that they can work through it. Because the first thing that I tell my betrayed clients is you are going to have to one day actually consciously decide if you trust that other person again. It may not be today, it may not be in a month, but there will have to be a day where you decide, yes, I trust him. Yes, I trust her, or no, I will never trust this person. And
Hmm.
once you make that decision, you can then go on to a different set of questions. But
Hmm.
ultimately, one of the things that a lot of the betrayal trauma sufferers don't recognize is that whether or not they will trust again, it absolutely is a decision. Much like, and because we think we don't make a lot of decisions, but
Hmm.
you decide whether you're going to get out of bed or not in the morning. And you can say, well, I have work, still a decision. Are you going to go to work?
Right.
That's a decision you make.
Hmm.
What route are you going to take to get to work? That's a decision you make. When you get to a red light, I know it doesn't feel like it, but that's a decision you make to stop. We
Hmm.
are constantly making decisions all the time. If on the way to work, then you can sleepwalk or sleep drive your route to work. But if you decide you want some coffee and have to stop off at Starbucks, you go a different way. So you
Hmm.
make that decision. What are you having for lunch? Well, I've had a peanut butter sandwich every day for 6 years. And you have decided every single day for 6 years that's what you're going to have. A
Hmm.
lot of people don't put thought into how many decisions they make in a day. And recognizing that is very powerful because we like to tell ourselves the story we're much less powerless than we are, that events are unfolding around us that we have to react to, when the reality is we have a lot of power about what happens around us. And if you can trust again, that's fantastic. And if you can't trust again, that's fantastic too, because at least you've reached a conclusion and can now move forward.
I love everything you just said, but I love the way you just finished that, where you said that if you can trust, fantastic. If you can't, fantastic, because it could look like to some people as a failure if you can't, because like, oh, the relationship failed, but in reality, no, because it's the next one that moves on, right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful
Well,
you just
and there,
conveyed.
I tell people if you decide that you can't trust, you basically have two scenarios. One, since you can't trust, you are not going to be in a relationship like that. So you're going to have to leave, request they leave, whatever. There's a dissolution of the relationship. Or if you don't have it in you to leave, as a lot of people don't, you
Mm,
can either pursue him getting help, or you can ignore it.
mm,
And if you pursue him getting help, he either will or he won't. And if you're not going to pursue it, and if he's not going to get help, all you have to know is that it's going to be a very bumpy ride the rest of the way, and try to strap in and make it as comfortable as you can, because it's going to be rough living with somebody who you flat out don't trust. I don't know how people do it, but there are a lot of people for whom fear is too big of a factor. Or, and this is one of my big issues with women and young ladies, and I constantly preach this on my social media, is that they get backed into a corner financially by a guy. and
Mm,
then they can't go anywhere.
mm,
And, I never saw this with my family. This isn't the way it is with my wife. We've raised my daughter to not be like this. But there were a lot of women who believe they've fallen in love for the first time. This happens with a lot of the young girls,
mhm,
19, 20, 21. They've fallen in love for the first time. It's the first time they feel like a man has loved them. Often there are issues with the father not being there or some kind of abuse from a male in their life. They think they found the right guy. They quickly marry. They often have kids very fast. They are then stuck at home. He's off making all the money. So because they are now dependent on his money, they can't go anywhere. So
right.
I always preach to women, starting at age 16, start putting money away, start saving
Mhm,
money, have a $500 emergency fund that
mhm,
nobody knows about at all times. If you can grow it bigger, fantastic, because you don't want to end up in a situation 5 years from now where the love of your life screws you over because they're not the love of your life. And
right.
unfortunately, a lot of young ladies, if the finances aren't the issue, they seem to believe that there is one person in the world for them. And I guess the person for them they feel is just a little broken, or this is what they got. This is the card that they drew, because quite often they haven't had opportunities in life. They haven't been exposed to other ways of life. They're
Right.
practicing behaviors that they've seen in their family or from their friends. They don't recognize things can be different, so they're scared to death to leave. Like,
Mm,
oh my God, the one guy who ever loved me, I can't walk away from him. I don't see that with my clients who are 40 and 45 and 50, because they recognize you break up, there will be somebody else in the future. And you
right.
break up with them, there will be somebody else in the future. The 40-year-old women I meet probably would have a tougher time one-on-one getting a new mate compared to a 22-year-old girl, or women, I should say. But those 22-year-olds don't recognize that it's okay to leave. It's okay to go find your happiness. Just
Right.
because you found one guy finally who liked you for a little while doesn't mean you're stuck there forever. And a lot of young women, that's also a reason that they stay.
Makes a lot of sense. Something that, like, I've seen a lot of my friends because I'm at that age. I'm 20 and I've seen my friends go through that or girls I'm trying to date be like, "No, I could fix him," and then go back.
Yeah.
And it's led to a lot of it's like, it's sad to watch because the good people don't deserve that, and they get stuck in bad situations. And so for any girl that might be going through that now, right? Maybe it's like they met at, we'll say 17, 18, and dated for 2 years, and those signs start to show. What advice would you give for them so that they could realize that or so they could leave? You gave the great advice with the $500 safety net just in case. Is there anything else that they can kind of look towards, maybe an emotional aspect of it?
Well, look toward early on, look toward signs. Is there something they don't want to talk about? Is there
Mhm,
something they get irritated about? If
mhm,
you ask them about their family, ask them about their parents, ask them about their upbringing. Learn who you're getting involved with. If I dated a lot of women who are very different than me before I
mhm,
met my wife. I think the reason that I've now been married longer than you've been alive is because I found somebody who is very similar to me. She comes from a family she's 6 years older than me, but we grew up less than a mile apart, not even knowing the other existed. Because we were never in the same school. The age gap was too big.
wow,
And she was one of two siblings. I was one of two siblings. Her parents were married when she was born, always lived in a house, and were married right up until they died recently. Same thing with me. My parents are still in my childhood home. There have been a lot of similarities, and I know people say opposites attract, and that may be true, but opposites don't last. And I can look to my own history for that. It's fun to date people who are very different. It's fun to date people who are going to show you a different way of life, take you on adventures, treat you differently than you're used to. Even if it's someone, with a crass attitude and you find that kind of sexy or you find that kind of funny, it's going to get worse. It's going to wear thin. What I really urge people to do is think about, especially if you date for longevity, if you're dating to ultimately get married, keep in mind, how does a successful relationship end? One of you dies of old age. And that means you only have to get one relationship right in your entire life. And the
True.
average person is not finding that person or marrying them or having kids with them at 20 or 21.
Mm,
Just look at the statistics of divorce rates, of children who grew up in unhappy households where the parents were married very young. Um,
mm,
it's a bad recipe, but again, a lot of times when I get into these clients' stories, when I learn about their origins, they are just repeating what they witnessed themselves. So if they grew up in a chaotic one-parent household where their mom or their dad was always working and they had to raise their younger siblings, or they were raised by an older sibling and had to get themselves ready for school, and no one ever came to their parents' night at school and that kind of stuff, um, if you have any sense of feeling neglected, if you have any sense of nobody's really seen you, a guy or a girl who starts paying attention to you in a way
mm,
that's never been done, that's really attractive. It's really nice feeling. It's going to get that dopamine and that
mm,
oxytocin flowing, and you're going to love the situation, of course. It may not last forever. It may it may be a fleeting thing. It's amazing how a lot of people can deceive people about who they really are. It's like, on a job interview when they say, "Well, what's your big weakness?" And you say, "I'm too much of a perfectionist. I care about my job too much." We know that's the answer. So
mm.
we know what the answer is in a lot of situations, even if it's not the truth, especially in the early days of dating, which, no offense, if you're a young guy who has any ability to read body language and any ability to read people, you can tell somebody exactly what they want to hear and you can get exactly what they want, especially if they have all those chemicals flowing, because
Mm.
it feels good and they want to continue that. And they think that's love and that love is going to last forever. Odds are I'll probably end up seeing you as a coach if that's what you believe. I would say more than half of my betrayal trauma clients are under 30 years old, maybe even under 25. And I think it's great that young people and young men and women are seeking out this help. But
Mm.
you might not need my help if you just made better decisions with the long term in mind.
So for someone that's dating, let's say, they met out at the mall or something, and then they go on a date. What are in your opinion, because they want to date long term, they don't want to hookup culture like we have now. It's kind of been a big thing in my generation. They want to go for a long term, possibly, or could see themselves going for long term. They want to date for long term, like you're saying. What are the questions or things that they should be doing on that first date or beginning stages of dating that you recommend that you've seen?
What's important to you? Is a certain type of politics important to you? Is a certain kind of religion important to you? Do you have to be a huge family person? Do you
Mm,
have to be a homebody or like to go out? Again, I truly believe it comes down to how much do you have in common? What are your goals for life? What are your priorities for life? If two 25-year-olds sit down and one of them doesn't want to have kids and the other wants to have a big family, you probably shouldn't go to the second date. because you have radically different things you want. Now, maybe one of you changes, maybe you meet in the middle naturally over time, but that usually doesn't happen. I have found in my coaching that instead of compromising all the time and each of you getting 50-50, because when it's 50-50, human nature says that we are going to focus on the half we didn't get. We are
Mm,
not glass half full people by nature. We
right.
are glass half empty people by nature. So a lot of times that you compromise, you don't focus on the 50% you got. You focus on the 50% you didn't get. That's why I urge people, win once in a while. Let the other one win once in a while.
Mm,
If you want to go to Italian and he wants to go to Mexican, you don't pick barbecue because it's a compromise. You
mhm,
both lose. Why
right.
don't you go to Mexican tonight and go to Italian the next time, and then you both win each individual time? These are the types of things: communication, problem solving techniques. How do you do that with the other? Because there are going to be much bigger issues than where you want to go eat. Um, and again, ask straight up if somebody is what they need. If you are a devout Christian and you need the other person to be a Christian, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. If you are a hardcore Republican, if you are a hardcore liberal, doesn't matter if politics don't matter to you. If politics are a big deal to you, then you probably shouldn't date somebody who has a different set of opinions. And I'll tell you the top question I get from my betrayal trauma clients is, how do I know if the next guy uses porn? And I'll tell you the trick. Here is the trick. If you need to know, first date is a great time to find out. This question, the answer is obviously no, I don't, or once in a great while, but hardly. I almost never watch porn. Nah, it's not for me, regardless of the truth. Um, the question to ask is more about seeming interested. If you're the lady, or even if you're the guy and want to find out what they lean in, like you're interested, like you don't want to hear the people around you. You don't want the people around you to hear you. And you go, hey, what kind of porn do you like? And
Oh.
if he says, well, I love blood, I like, Eskimo transsexuals. Okay, it was great meeting you. I'm out of here because that's not for me. No, I like other porn. No, dude, it's the porn, not the
Yeah,
Eskimo transsexuals. Uh,
right.
and again, if you don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who uses porn, that's your absolute right. And if you use porn, don't get into a relationship with one of these people. It's not fair to them to lie to them.
Mhm,
Um, Communication and honesty is key. That's, as I started just with pornography addiction. Then after I wrote my first book, I moved into betrayal trauma as well. After I started working with both addicts and their partners separately, I got to work together.
mm,
And I just got to set these two people down and just pry some truth out of them. And most of the time, make them realize they're 75% on the same page. Much like we focus on a compromise, how we lose, when you're 70, you and I can be 75% on the same page, but we're going to focus on that 25%. We're going to fight about that 25%, when we should talk about what we want first. Let's say, you and I are raising some kids. You may think that they need a private Christian school, and I may think, no, they need to go straight to public school and see what the world is like. So we might argue about this, but what we should focus on is that we both want our kids to have the best education that will prepare them for life. We may have different ways that we think we'll reach that, but we should talk about what we agree on first. And I
mm,
have found that when so many people first reach a common ground, it's a lot easier to talk about those differences, because you know that at least At the end of the day, they want the same thing. How they get there, well, that's just details to be worked out.
So let's say that someone they don't have a coach in front of them, but they listen to this podcast, they want to go to the partner and work these things out. How can they try and find that common ground? Is there questions to ask? Is there tactics? Or is it just saying, hey, this is the problem?
If it's not a big problem, like where are we going out to eat, or like, what color are we going to get for the carpet, or what's our new car going to be? It's just a matter of working it out, questions, talking, communication. You can do that on your own. A lot of times I just ask, why is this important to you? Why is this important to you? Here's why this is important to me. Just simple communication will get you there. Honest, open communication will get you there most of the time. Look for the similarities before you look for the differences. That's the most important thing. Um, that said, make sure you're not being taken for a ride. Make sure you're not just hearing what you think this person wants you to hear. Always pay attention, especially early on. Have your guard up, because it's very easy to lie to get what you want. Whether that's sex, or whether that's a girlfriend or boyfriend, or whether that's a monetary situation, a living situation, make sure that they have the best intentions. Make sure that they are not manipulating you for their own gain, because that's quite often what addicts do, is manipulate for our own gain. I did this
Mm,
myself in all the years that I was an addict.
makes sense. So, in your time of doing this, what has been something that because when you think of problems that arise in a relationship, you might think of a big thing, someone cheating or whatever it might be. But it's it. My guess would be that it would normally be something small, kind of leading up to it. What are the leading causes of problems in relationships that you've seen?
Not talking about them. Usually what
Mm,
happens is something big occurs, or a series of small things occurs and nobody talks about it. So you
mhm,
start to build resentment towards the other person. You start to even get upset at yourself for not addressing things. And then one day, that one little, you left the dryer door open, or you left the eggs out, or you left the light in the bathroom on, a totally benign thing becomes that last drop of water that overfills the bucket, and they are let loose. And what I suggest to people, recognize, give yourself a temperature check. How are you feeling? Are you walking around mad? Are you walking around resentful? Are you walking around carrying something that you are afraid to talk about? I believe that there are only two emotions in life, and there are only two uh, things that really drive us. Everything else is an offshoot, and that's love and fear. Every emotion, every decision that we make, if you trace it to its primordial roots deep inside of us, is either about love or fear. And we are ruled for the most part by fear. All you have to do is look at America right now and see that, I don't care what side you're on, but both sides use the tactic of, I'm going to scare you about the other guy.
mhm,
It's so much easier than telling you the good things about my guy, to
mm,
scare you about the other. Again, it's leading into that negativity. And I was in that negative space for so many years in my life, despite the fact it looked good on the outside. And I see so many people to whom the outside world thinks they're doing awesome. I have clients who have been professional athletes. I have clients who have been on television shows, and I have clients who can barely rub two dimes together. It doesn't matter your lot in life. You can be rich, poor, any ethnicity, any religion. At the end of the day, we're all people.
mm.
I mean, we're all people. When people, oh, you've worked with famous people, and yeah, I'll tell you, uh, actors, musicians, they're just the drama kids from high school. That's all. They're just the band kids from high school. That's all. They have the same fears as the rest of us. They have the same insecurities as the rest of us. And I know I keep beating this drum, but it's about honesty. It's about communication. And if you're starting to recognize, oh, I don't want to be in the room with my partner right now, or I can't talk to them about this, they'll get upset. If you can't talk to your partner, there's something wrong there. There's
Mm,
something seriously wrong there. If this is supposed to be the person that is going to stand by you for most of your life, and you can't say something to them for fear of how it's going to make them react, that's horrible. That's the last person you should feel that way with. So
mm,
it's a lot of self reflection. It's a lot of self reflection. And it's a lot about being honest with yourself. Because that's the one thing that both my clients who deal with betrayal trauma and my clients who are addicts do is that they gaslight themselves. Why are addicts such great manipulators? Because we know how to manipulate ourselves. I can convince myself into anything. If I can convince myself into anything, if I can figure out how to make things happen, then I
mm,
can do it to you and I can do it to anybody else. And I can do it with a smile that you won't recognize. There's a drive behind it that's run by fear. Maybe it's fear that I won't be able to engage in my addiction. Maybe it's fear that from the trauma that this person will leave or whatever it may be. Ultimately, you have to be able to look in the mirror and tell yourself the truth. Tell yourself who you really see. If you see a superhero, no, you're not that good. I hate to break that to you. And if you see the world's biggest sack of crap, that's not who it is either.
mm.
Because technically there can only be one of them in the world, and I know it's not you. It's going to be somebody you are somebody in the middle, just like I am, just like everybody else is. You have your good days, you have your bad days, you have your natural talents, you have your acquired talents, you have things you'll never be able to do. You have your deeply held opinions and you have your on the surface opinions. And the key is to understand who you are without telling yourself a story, because at the end of the day, we are the stories we tell ourselves.
Wow. That that's a very good point. We are the stories we tell ourselves. You're right. If you can lie to yourself, make yourself believe a lie, who can't you convince?
Yeah.
You
Why
know?
are you wearing your hat backward?
My hair's messed up.
Okay, that's great. If you would have, I like the way it looks.
True.
No, your hair's messed up.
Right.
I wear baseball caps. I think
Mm,
I look like a douchebag in baseball caps. It makes me look like a conehead. But when my hair's longer, if it's messed up, I'll
uh-huh.
throw on a baseball cap and
Right.
just repping my team. Yeah, well, you know what? Why are you repping the Red Sox in March? You know,
Right.
uh, well, because my hair is a mess. It's that much. Try tomorrow to walk through life being completely honest. It's
Mm,
difficult. Something is simple. Somebody says, "Hey, how you doing?" Most of the time, what they're actually saying is, "Hey, I see you and have nothing to say."
right.
And then you in response go, "Yep, I see you and have nothing to say." Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you? Great, great. Okay. See you later. There was a girl and I who were always awake first in my second rehab.
Mhm.
Every morning we were the first two awake, and every morning it was like, "Hi, how are you? Good. Hi, how are you? Good." It's like, isn't it weird we say that? Because I gotta be honest with you, I'm tired. I'm pissed off they don't have caffeine here. I hate my bed. I'm not happy. I made life decisions that led me here. I like sleeping in, but for some reason can't here. So how am I doing? Yeah, I'm not doing too hot. I'm in friggin' rehab. How do you think I'm doing? So why don't we? And she and I, we're talking about this. Let's just say I see you. And the
Mm.
rest of the time that we were at rehab together, we didn't say, "Hey, how are you doing?" It's like when your doctor comes in and says, "Hey, how you're doing?" I'm doing fine the rest of the time. I'm here because there's a problem. So just say, "I see you. I see you," because that's honest. If, I hope you're healthy. I hope you're well, I guess. But ultimately, I'm not here to get a checkup on everyone during the day.
Right.
People don't mean, "How are you doing?"
Mm-hmm.
Try just saying hi.
Mm.
Or it's a nice day. If
Right.
you genuinely don't care how they're doing, don't ask. Try that. It's minor, but try that. See
Yeah.
how much, like I said, think about how many decisions you make in your day. I try to remind my clients, as I try to remind everybody, you have so much power in your life. You just quite often don't recognize it.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Because that's something that I talk about a lot in general, like control. Because we all know that like control is a fallacy in a sense, but also it's we can control certain things in our lives, we can't control other things. But you said we do have power in our lives over something. There's certain things we can control. So rather than worrying about the things we can't control, you might as well do what you can control because at least you have that, not giving that up.
Right.
One thing I do want, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, you're absolutely right. And, that's the core of recovery is what can you control? What can you not control? How do you tell the difference? And how do you just escape it? Or how do you just deal with it when, we've got a picnic today. It's pouring rain. There's
Mm,
nothing I can do in this case. Food gets ruined, buy new food. They're doing construction where you want to have the picnic, go somewhere else. There's a lot of things that can pop up you can control.
right.
But if you can't control it and you can't control and not having that control, which was who I was, that's a rough, rough life
Mm,
because you sort of think the world is out to get you. Fact is, it's not raining because the universe hates you. It's raining because of a series of atmospheric conditions that don't love, don't hate, don't know you exist, have no feelings.
mm,
And that's sometimes what you have to do is just radically accept what's happening around you. And for addicts, for people dealing with trauma, that can be very difficult to just accept reality. So a lot of times they create something else in their head.
one thing I want to touch back on is you talk about how fear controls our lives. And it can be the smallest thing ever, whether it's a guy asking out a girl. It's something we talk about all the time now because there's always that fear of asking, but like, or even going for business, whatever. How can someone overcome that fear of doing whatever it might be? Going to ask out the girl, starting the business, starting the podcast, talking to a person they admire, don't know, like whatever it might be. How can, in your experience, what can people do to kind of overcome that?
I always try to look at it in terms of how important is this really?
Mm,
I want to ask out Jennifer. I'm fearful Jennifer's going to say no. But the only way Jennifer will say yes is if I ask.
mm-hmm,
And if she says no, where will I be in a year with this? Where will
mm,
I be in 3 years with this? Where will I be in 5 years with this? Well, I'm going to guess in a year after Jennifer says no, you're barely going to remember it. You're probably two girlfriends later on. Had you been with Jennifer, odds are a year later you would be broken up anyway, statistically.
Right.
So, how important is this in the long run? You know,
Mhm.
the only job I ever got fired from was when I was 17 years old. And that absolutely wrecked my world for about 3 days. And then I got another job, and I still kind of felt a little crappy, looking back shortly after it happened. Now, 30 some odd years later, um, I'm still friends with the assistant manager who fired me. We weren't friends for a while, but
Right.
we reconnected, we liked each other, and I wasn't doing a good job in retrospect.
Mhm.
That wasn't for me in retrospect. I look back and go, I did not enjoy my time there.
Right.
So, was getting fired the worst thing in the world? No, it wasn't. It opened up other opportunities. I was working at a newspaper within 6 months of getting fired from that job. I then spent, and that was when I was 18, I then spent the next 20 years of my life before I got into recovery working for newspapers and magazines as a writer and an editor. So, had I not been fired from that shoe store, that opportunity to work at a newspaper or magazine might not have made itself appear. And one thing that I try to preach to my clients, or when I go on these kinds of shows or do a live broadcast on TikTok, is that we don't know why things happen when they're happening. But down the road, a lot of stuff you can't make sense of will make sense. I dated a woman, for instance, for 2.5 years, I think, from like 20 to 22, 20 to 23.
Mhm.
Um, Loved her to death. We got into a little bit of a rut, but I just thought that wasn't a big deal. After two, nobody had dated me that long before. I thought we were going to end up getting married. And one Sunday, she approaches me and breaks up with me. And that rocked my world. That was not what I was expecting to happen that day. Within 3 days, she was moved out. And there I was, 23 years old, no college degree, sitting in an apartment by myself, going, this wasn't the plan. Well, fast forward all these years later, I've now been married almost 23 years.
Wow.
My son is 22 now. He and I just went to see The Who last night, had a great time together. And I actually thought of this last night because I think about this once in a while is if I stayed with that girl when I was 22, if I pestered her to work it out, if it didn't happen like that, my son wouldn't exist. He simply would not be a person on this earth because my wife and I would not have met.
Mm.
And to think about all of the wonderful times I've had with my son, how enriching it's been with him. Same thing with my daughter, same thing with my wife. Had that relationship not ended, everything about my last 23 years or so wouldn't have happened. And I really, despite, the addictions and the down parts of that time, I'm really happy with my life. I'm really glad my life turned out the way it did. That wouldn't have happened if I stayed with her, but I couldn't know that at that point. So when you get one of those bad days, when you get one of those, side swiped on a random Tuesday afternoon by some kind of information that you can't control and you really have to process, try to tell yourself, eventually this will all make sense.
Yeah.
Eventually this will lead to good things. Eventually this will lead to opportunities I otherwise may not have had. Just because something goes radically bad, that's not the end of your life. You just have to switch plans. You just have to go off in another direction. And odds are, and I truly believe this now with enough years behind me, everything happens for a reason. I'm not a religious guy. I'm not a spiritual guy, really, but I do believe that there is some kind of equalizing energy in the universe that just kind of keeps things okay. And that's what you have to recognize is there are great days in your life. There are horrible days in your life. most of them are just going to be okay, and you're not going to remember them, and that's okay unto itself.
Mm. So to stay on the topic of bad things turning into good things, how can someone take a past addiction, whether it was to alcohol, porn, drugs, and turn it into a positive for the rest of their lives? Because you've done it and
Yeah,
help people do it. So how can people do that themselves?
I can tell you with me, I looked to my pre-existing skill set. About 8 years ago, was this 8? Yeah, 8, 9 years ago at this point, I was at a bookstore. Don't know if you've ever seen one of those because they're all closed now. It was like Amazon, but in a building you got to go into. Um, I was in the self-help section of a bookstore shortly after I got into recovery, and I was seeing what they had because I'm a big research geek. And I saw that they had generalized books on addiction. They had plenty of stuff about alcohol and drug abuse, some food stuff, some gambling stuff. There was nothing about sexually related addictions. And I just thought to myself, you've been a writer for 20 years. I actually made very good money also as a ghostwriter, which means I work with someone writing their book. We put their name on it, but I write the book.
Right.
Um, there's a lot of money in that. Basically, it's sanctioned plagiarism to a degree, but it comes with a nice check, so it's okay that my name's not on the book. Uh,
Right.
I did that for a very long time. I know how to write books. I know how to write well, and I saw that there was no book there about porn addiction. So I just thought to myself, I was doing just freelance work at that point, figuring out what my next steps were. And I said, you know what? I'll write a book about this. So I wrote a book that looked at my last 5 years prior to going into recovery. I delve back into my youth a bit and talk about some of the reasons I became an addict. But I look at those last 5 years and I thought I would just put that out there. That would be my contribution to this community. And I had no plans of ever getting to where I am now. After that book was published, I was expecting a couple comments from some addicts who read it. I got those. What shocked me was how many wives and girlfriends and even family members contacted me and said, "Wow, you fixed yourself. How do I fix my guy?
Mm.
How do I do to them what you did?" And it was, and I started to learn these women were dealing with betrayal trauma. Never heard that concept before. So I talked to, one of the nice things about what I do now is I know so many therapists I can talk to,
Mm.
who, they're technically not colleagues because I'm not licensed, but they are great sources of information and help. And one of the guys who's a marriage and family therapist that I know taught me about betrayal trauma a bit. And I said, let's write a book together about this. You're the expert. I'm the former addict. I know how to gaslight. I know what's going through the addict's mind. I'll
Mm.
answer questions from that point of view. You answer questions from the expert point of view. So we put that book out, and that ended up being a bestseller. After that got so much attention, I started getting offers to speak at colleges or libraries. So I got an agent and started doing all that stuff. And this is great. People are paying me to stand in front of a crowd and talk. And if there's one thing I can do, it's stand in front of a crowd and talk, much like I'm a decent writer. I was also a city councilor. As the publisher and creator of a local magazine that we had to do a lot of speaking in front of people. It's never been a problem of mine. So again, I took my natural skills, the ability to create a presentation, the ability to speak to an audience of a way they can understand. And I started doing this. Then the pandemic hit. And in talking to another friend of mine, I said, I'm going to have to find some real job because I can't go to auditoriums and talk because the auditoriums are locked right now. And he said, well, why don't you're so good at communicating. You're so good at asking questions. you'll ask any question, and it's not hard for me. I was a journalist. I had to
Mm.
ask parents about their kids that just died. I had to talk to people whose houses have just burned down. I don't get starstruck because I've interviewed 1,000,001 celebrities. And I can ask really personal questions without flinching. And he said, maybe you should consider being a coach. You're very intuitive. You're a great listener. You know this stuff now. You've been doing so much research. So I started to get certified as a pornography addiction coach and as a betrayal coach shortly thereafter. Moved on to the disclosure specialist stuff, which is the truth in communication a little bit later. As I was writing my third book, I was doing this and got certified, just got lucky on TikTok. I created 2 videos early on. One did 9 million views, one did 10 million views. Again,
Wow.
stupid luck. Stupid luck. It was funny at the time because my daughter wanted to be an influencer, and I had like 50 times the followers that she did. Um, Once I hit big on TikTok, that changed everything. My schedule started getting full. I started doing live broadcasts on there, and I started to be able to make money because no matter how many people you help, no matter how many people you speak in front of, the electric company doesn't care. They just want their money. So I was able to make money helping people one on one. And as I've continued to do this through the last 6 years, I've all but stopped doing public speaking. I probably only do 1/3 of the podcasts that I used to do because I have found my niche in coaching. And again, why? Because I can ask you anything. I don't mind asking you questions about your penis. I don't mind asking you questions about your masturbation habits. Um, it just doesn't faze me. People have told me horror stories in my real professional life. I did a series of articles on people in prison and the lives they live. And they told me stuff that was like, oh my God, you did what to who? How? But you can't make that face. It's okay. Why did that happen? Why did you make that choice? Kind of the same questions I ask now to
Mm.
people. I'm a good communicator. I know that. I was never going to go be a mechanic after the life I've led. I don't have those skills. I was
Mm.
never going to go be a culinary expert in a restaurant. I don't have those skills. What I did, and what I think everybody should do if they can, is to build on their skill sets and go in a direction that already makes sense. And I can look back and say, being an addict, learning all the research, going through recovery, being a journalist who learns how to ask these deep questions. I've run a couple companies, so I know how to do websites. I know how to do the back end type stuff.
Mm.
It all just came together. And I've heard people talk about, oh, I was called to God to do this work. I was called to be a teacher. I was called to, do that, to build houses in Africa. I just feel called to it. And I never understood what that meant until I started doing this. I understand what a calling feels like. If I can do this the rest of my life, I'll never retire. If I can pay the bills with this the rest of my life, I'll never have another job because I truly feel this is what I was put here to do.
Wow. That's one, that's amazing. Congratulations. That's beautiful. Like your calling can help people in life. You know what I mean? You've been there. One thing
Yeah.
I've been wanting to ask you since you've answered my email and said yes to doing this podcast, as a person that's written books, been a journalist, done interviews, is a coach, great communicator, what have you learned about the power of words in communication?
That the spoken word is only about 25% of communication.
Explain more.
If I'm working, especially with a couple, I will not do it with, I do all my sessions through Zoom. I will not do it with the screen off
Mm,
because I need to read your face. I
mm-hmm,
need to read your body language. That also is communication.
mm.
How you start the session, the first few words you say and how you say them. It almost doesn't matter what they are. It's how you say them. How do you come into this? I have to size that up right away. Most communication is nonverbal.
Mm.
And that's while I was a writer, and I know that's a form of communication, even when we are in a verbal conversation, a lot of communication is nonverbal. How you dress, how you sit, how you look at the other person. What do you do with your eyes or your face when they're talking? There are a lot of people in this world who are not good poker players or would not be good poker players because they have everything written all over their face. Uh,
Mm.
that's ultimately it because words are easy to manipulate. Words are easy to say that aren't true. It's much harder to fake an expression. It's much harder to fake a nonverbal emotion. So I actually look for how the person is behaving. How are they holding themselves? How are they reacting when somebody says something? Um, Obviously, words are important, but the nonverbal communication, especially early on, really tells me the most.
So let's say someone doesn't know anything about body language communication and they feel they might be getting manipulated or they just want to know, they kind of want to be better at it. What are some signs, both good and bad, that you realize, like let's say someone is manipulating you or someone else or is rocky or they're lying to you. How can you kind of tell? Can you kind of give a little insight into that?
Number one, they won't look in your eyes.
Okay.
Number one, they won't look in your eyes. Number two, they're going to give you as little detail as possible. They may even try to tell you a half truth. I'm going to go out with the guys later. Well, you don't mention you're going to the strip club, but you mention you're going out with the guys.
Right.
There's a lot, there's a lot of lying by omission in this world. If if your guy is going out with the guys, you can say, where are you going to go? Hopefully, if he's a decent guy, he'll tell you the truth. Hopefully, early in a relationship, you say, if I catch you lying about anything, it's going to be trouble. And we're going to have to address that so they don't lie. And there are plenty of girlfriends in this world who would say, go have a good time because they trust you and know you're not going to do anything stupid at the strip club. But there are some women who would also say, you can't go. I don't
Mm,
like that. And then you have to decide, are you going to listen to the desires of the person who's supposed to be the most important person in your life? Or are you going to listen to your own desires or your friends? Um, if somebody listens to themselves, if they do what they want to, you can kind of guess that there's a bunch of lying in there. If they leave out details, there's often a lot of lying in there. This is not 100% foolproof, but if you look at somebody in the eyes, ask them a question that you know they're going to answer honestly. Like, hey, do you like cake? Their pupils will not change. But then ask them a question that you know, that uh, they might lie on. If their pupils stay the same, science tells us they're not lying.
mm.
If their pupils dilate, science tells us that they're lying. I would not want to trust this in a court of law, but I have used this technique myself. I can't really do it in sessions because you can't really tell what's going on with
Mm.
somebody's eyes in that detail. Um, But are they fidgeting? Are they stumbling over their words? Do they seem to be making stuff up on the spot? People ask me, what's the best thing about being in recovery? I said, straight up, I don't have to remember my lies anymore because I don't tell them. Because as an addict who was run by fear, I did not want anything to get in the way of me engaging in my addictions. By the point that shortly before I went to recovery, I think that my mind was telling me I needed my addictions to survive. That's something that, people have to also recognize, what is the motivation for a lie? It's usually to stay out of trouble, or it's usually to be able to continue a behavior that you don't know how to live without. When you're an addict, you have no coping skills. My only coping skills were to get lost in alcohol or get lost in porn. If I didn't have either of those skills, how was I going to deal with life? If I didn't have either of those things, what was I going to do? Because I didn't have the skills to deal with life. So my survival instinct told me, do whatever you have to do, say whatever you have to say so you can get to your addictions. I didn't know all about the chemistry in the mind at that point. I just knew I feel like I need this stuff.
Mm,
And I bring that up because people may be lying. And again, this is something I have to tell my betrayed clients. They are probably lying for a reason that has nothing to do with you. One of the things that's very difficult for me to explain and get the betrayed to understand is that in most cases, the pornographic addict partner wants the best for them, doesn't want to hurt them, doesn't want to see them sad. All the lying, all the hiding, all of the stuff I did to keep my wife, my family, my friends away from knowing about this, it was obviously, shame and embarrassment on my part, but I didn't want my wife to worry. I didn't want my wife to think of me as some pervert. I didn't want my parents to be like, where did we go wrong with this kid? Why is he addicted to two things? Um,
mm,
I didn't want to hurt anybody else. I didn't want to make anybody else feel sad. So I would lie if I needed to. I would come home and did you drive drunk? Nope. I'm going to take a shower. And I'm in the shower slurping water and trying to wash the beer smell off of me
mm,
because I don't want to be found out. Because drunk driving, number one, is stupid and not cool and dangerous and dumb. But it also is going to really get under my wife's skin. She's going to really be upset with me. And I don't want that. I don't want to upset her. I love her. I don't want to make her worry. But I sure as hell am not giving up my alcohol. I need that.
mm,
So I'll tell you the story you need to hear. And now that I'm sober, and I'll tell you the story you need to hear, and you the story you need to hear, and you the story you need to hear, even if they're three different stories. That's why I say it's great I don't have to remember my lies anymore. There's one truth. Go with that. And if you don't like my truth, that's just as much, if not more, on your shoulders than mine.
mm. So one last question before we get out of here. In your experience with your marriage and every relationship that you've helped, I don't know how long they've all kind of been around. What are the, I guess, keys to a successful relationship? I don't know the best way to put it, but that's how I'm gonna roll with it, I guess.
Number one, truth.
Okay.
The truth. Because if you are not on the same page with the truth, you are playing a fictional character. I tell all of my clients, whether they are a porn person or a betrayal person, first session, I say, if you don't like one of my questions, if it makes you uneasy, I would rather you just say pass, or you just say, I don't want to answer that at this time, than make up an answer because you feel like you have to say something.
Mm,
If you tell me something that's not true, I am then helping a fictional character. And it's easy to help fictional characters, but I'd rather help you. So in a relationship, I believe that trust and the truth are the most important things. You share your truth with somebody, and if they like it, you can keep going. If they don't like it, it was never going to work anyway. And make sure you know your truth. I still discover things to this day. The other day, I got a Roku TV for the first time, and I'm going through on the apps, and I'm like, oh, an app for this, an app for this, an app for this. This was about a month ago. The other day, I'm going through looking at I should look at some of these apps. Uh, I've got like 3 nature documentary apps. And I had to sit there and it dawned on me. I don't like nature documentaries. I want to be the guy who likes nature documentaries. I want to be the guy who's interested in the natural world, who finds this more entertaining than reality TV. I want to be that guy. I like that guy. That guy's smarter than me. That guy's classier than me. That guy's more educated than me. I want to be that guy. But guess what? I'm not that guy. I have learned over the years that when it comes to business and friendship, I will choose business. And I
Mm.
lied to myself about that for a long time. I used to like to hire my friends. Most of them aren't my friends anymore because I'm not easy to work for. And I had to recognize that I would pick business over friendship, even though I would tell myself something different because it was who I wanted to be. Again, it goes back to looking in the mirror in the morning. Do you see who's really there? Positives and negatives. And if you have negatives and want to change them, you can. If you don't know how, find somebody who does know how, whether it's because they're experienced like I am, or whether they've got all the fancy book learning like a therapist. Um, what works for you works for you. It doesn't really matter, but it's going to be the truth that gets you there. That's why we dig into the trauma. You've been telling yourself a story about what happened when you were 8 or
Mhm.
12 or 14, and we need to go back and have you tell the real story. Because ultimately, whether you're an addict or whether you're dealing with severe trauma, the question is not, how do you quit? How do you get fixed? The real question is, how did you get here in the first place? What happened in your life that led you to this place? And usually it's not having coping skills. And so you have to go back and figure out why that happened. And you have to be truthful about it. And it can be a very difficult process.
I'm trying to think of how to say this. Thank you so much for this interview. We've done this is I believe our third one now, and I'm sad canceling here because this was probably the most informative one we've done. And once again, I want to thank you so much, and I want to give you the time to tell you where to find you. But you've helped me. This is a selfish interview for me at this point because you've helped me so much in this, and I hope that the people that are listening have been helped as much by you as you've helped me. I really do appreciate it. And once again, thank you for coming on the show. I'd like to give you some time to tell me where to find you, where to read their books, or TikTok, Instagram, all that type of stuff. And I'm also going to put in the link down below. You can find you there too.
Yep. Easiest thing to do is go to my website. It is thatcorncoach.com. Corn, because if you're on social media at all, you know we're not allowed to write the word porn. Um, because God forbid everybody starts watching porn, even though they already are, because they see the word. Um, thatcorncoach.com. The other great place to find me is TikTok. My handle is that.corncoach. Um, and you can learn all about scheduling with me. You can learn about my books. You can learn through just about anything you want to know about me through those 2 ways. And the only thing I want to say in closing is that if you think you have a problem, do not try to disqualify yourself. Why? When I started doing this about 6 years ago, there was a belief among many that women couldn't be porn addicts. Well, I have seen my female clientele double in size every year because it's finally starting to get through to people. Hey, the ladies have working parts down there too. The
Mm.
ladies have trauma. The ladies have addiction just like the guys do. Yay! No matter your gender, no matter your country of origin, no matter your religion, no matter your political beliefs, no matter any economic demographic you can find, your weight, your financial situation, the family you come from, none of this matters. Anybody can be a pornography addict. And if you think you might be a pornography addict or you're headed there, get some help now before this gets even worse in society. Because
Mm.
if we look at how society has handled things like the opioid crisis in the 80s and 90s, if we look at how the world handled alcoholism in the 1900s and the 1910s, we do not have a good track record for being proactive as a society. And especially with something like this, where everybody still likes to pretend they don't look at porn, despite the fact the statistics suggest 9 out of 10 guys and 6 out of 10 women look at porn somewhat regularly. Not all addicts, but look at porn somewhat regularly. Um, Anybody can be an addict. It doesn't matter what your story is. And if you believe you are, get help because people aren't looking for this stuff. You're going to have to be your own best advocate.
Thank you so much for one finishing off with that, and once again joining us. Hope maybe one day we can have you back on. Keep up the
Love
good
to.
work, and I hope that everyone follows you.
All
Thank,
right. Thank you very much. I appreciate you allowing me to talk to your audience.
of course, anytime, and we'll be back next week. Hopefully, Kim will be able to join us. But yeah, have a good day, everyone.